A young man agreed to stay at his best friend's house while his friend was away. It seemed like a simple favor, just guarding the place overnight. But from the moment he stepped inside, something felt different. It was supposed to be an easy night. His best friend had gone out of town and asked him for a small favor. Stay at my place, just for tonight. The house will be empty otherwise. He agreed without hesitation. After all, what could possibly go wrong in a quiet suburban home? The evening began normally enough. He dropped his bag by the couch, grabbed a soda from the fridge, and sat down, ready to scroll his phone and watch some late-night shows. But the moment he closed the front door, something shifted in the air. The silence inside the house was too thick, unnatural, almost like the walls themselves were holding their breath. He brushed it off, convincing himself it was just his imagination. Every house creaks. Every house has strange noises, right? Still, he couldn't ignore the heavy feeling that pressed on his chest. It was as if the house didn't want him there. Walking through the rooms to make himself comfortable, he noticed details he had never paid attention to before. The dim hallway lights flickered slightly, the old grandfather clock ticked unevenly, and the shadows stretched longer than they should have. He tried to laugh at his own uneasiness, muttering, "It's just a house. Nothing more." Yet, the farther the night dragged on, the more he realized he wasn't as alone as he thought. His friend's house had a presence, a silence that wasn't empty but watchful. The first outline ends with him sitting back on the couch, trying to relax, but feeling that someone, or something, was quietly observing him from the darkened corners of the home. He tried to relax in the living room, scrolling his phone. Yet the creaking floors, the whisper of the curtains, and the strange chill in the house refused to let him settle. The home felt alive, as if watching him. The man settled on the couch with his phone, determined to distract himself. The television played in the background, faint light flashing across the living room. Yet no matter how hard he tried to focus, his mind kept drifting back to the strange atmosphere of the house. The curtains swayed gently, though the windows were closed. A soft draft seemed to snake through the room, carrying with it an unsettling chill. He pulled his hoodie tighter, brushing it off as poor insulation. But deep down, a small knot of unease was growing. The floor creaked suddenly, as though someone had stepped on it in the hallway. His eyes darted in that direction, but nothing moved. He chuckled nervously, whispering to himself, "Old houses, they always make noises." Still, he couldn't shake the feeling. His friend's house seemed to have a pulse of its own. The shadows seemed darker than they should be, stretching across the walls as if reaching for him. Even the flickering of the lamp beside him felt deliberate, like it was struggling against an unseen force. He scrolled his phone faster, desperate to drown out the growing tension. Social media videos, random news headlines, anything to keep his mind from wandering. But the more he ignored it, the stronger it became. The silence between sounds was heavy, oppressive. His heart thumped against his chest. Every small noise, a ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, even the rustle of his own clothes, was amplified. He felt watched, not by the house itself, but by something within it, something patient, something waiting. When the lights flickered again, longer this time, he froze. A thought struck him with icy clarity. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he believed. Hours passed. Then came the sound. Faint, slow, deliberate footsteps in the hallway. He froze, holding his breath. But when he checked, the hallway was empty. The night stretched on endlessly. He had dozed lightly on the couch, phone slipping from his hand, when a sound jolted him awake. At first, he thought it was part of his dream. But then it came again, clear, deliberate. Footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from the hallway just beyond the living room. His heart skipped a beat. He sat perfectly still, his ears straining. The sound was faint but unmistakable, the rhythm of someone walking on wooden floors. He whispered to himself, maybe a neighbor, maybe the sound carried through the walls. But even as he tried to reason, he knew the truth. The sound was inside this very house. Gripping his phone, he switched on the flashlight. The thin beam cut through the darkness as he forced himself to rise. Each step he took toward the hallway felt like a battle, his legs heavy with dread. The hallway stretched before him, silent and empty. The light revealed nothing but the old carpet and the family portraits hanging crookedly on the walls. Yet the silence was worse than the sound. It felt staged, like something was hiding just beyond his vision. His breathing quickened. He stood frozen, waiting. The house seemed to be holding its breath with him. For a moment, there was only silence, then creak. A floorboard groaned under unseen weight, right behind him. He spun around instantly, shining the light across the living room. Nothing, just the empty furniture, the curtains swaying slightly. His pulse thundered in his ears. It was then he realized whatever was in the house didn't want to be seen. It wanted him to know it was there, and it was waiting. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A door upstairs slammed shut on its own. His heart pounded as if someone unseen was sharing the space with him. He stood frozen in the hallway, phone flashlight trembling in his hand. The silence was unbearable, thick like a weight pressing down on his chest. Then, without warning, the ceiling lights above him flickered violently, buzzing as if struggling against some unseen interference. His pulse quickened. He whispered, "It's just electricity, just bad wiring." But before the thought could even calm him, a deafening bang echoed through the house. The upstairs door had slammed shut. The sound was so sudden, so forceful, it rattled the walls. He stumbled back against the staircase railing, his breath shallow. No one else was here. He knew it. Yet, the slam carried a message. You are not alone. His mind raced for explanations. Wind? No. The windows were locked tight. An intruder? He would have heard footsteps. Ghost? The very idea made his skin crawl, but it was harder and harder to deny. The house suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like it was closing in on him. The air was icy now, the kind of cold that sinks deep into the bones. His fingers shook as he pointed the phone's light toward the staircase. The beam revealed nothing but shadows stretching upward into darkness. And then a soft creak, the unmistakable groan of footsteps descending the stairs. He froze, eyes locked on the steps, waiting for something, someone, to appear. But the staircase remained empty. Only the sound moved closer. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. He backed slowly into the living room, whispering under his breath, "Not real, not real." Yet every flicker of the lights, every shifting shadow told him otherwise. Something was moving in the house with him, something that wanted to be noticed. In panic, he looked around and found an old photo album on the shelf. Every family picture had faces scratched out. The deeper he looked, the stronger the dread became. Shaken by the slamming door and the flickering lights, he retreated to the living room, trying desperately to calm his nerves. His hands trembled as he set his phone down, forcing himself to breathe slowly. "It's just an old house," he repeated in his mind. Nothing more. But then his eyes fell on something unusual, a dusty leather-bound photo album resting on the bookshelf. It looked out of place, almost as if it had been waiting for him. Curiosity, mixed with dread, pushed him closer. He pulled the album down, brushing off a thick layer of dust. The smell of old paper and mildew filled the air as he opened it. At first, the pictures seemed ordinary, family portraits, gatherings, birthdays. But soon he noticed something horrifying. Every single face in the photographs had been violently scratched out. Parents, children, even pets, all faceless. His stomach twisted. The scratches weren't random. They were deliberate, angry, etched with force as if someone wanted to erase the very existence of these people. He flipped the pages faster, each one more disturbing than the last. In some photos, the faces were not only scratched, but burned, leaving black holes where eyes should have been. The silence of the house deepened as he stared at the album. He felt as though the faceless family in the photos was somehow connected to the strange presence surrounding him. And then he noticed something chilling. In the last few pages, there were pictures of the very room he stood in. The same couch, the same curtains. But in the background of each photo, a tall, dark silhouette lingered, always watching. The realization made his blood run cold. This wasn't just a photo album. It was a Then it appeared, a dark figure standing by the window, unmoving, watching him. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark, piercing straight into his soul. His hand shook as he slammed the album shut and placed it back on the shelf. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The house felt heavier now, like every corner was filled with eyes, silently watching him. He tried to steady himself, gripping the phone flashlight as though it was his only weapon against the darkness. For a moment, all was still. Then, something caught his attention. By the far end of the room, near the window, a shadow seemed thicker than the rest. At first, he told himself it was just the curtains. But when the curtains swayed gently to the side, he saw it. A figure, tall, unnaturally still, its form blending with the darkness, but undeniably there. He froze, unable to look away. The figure did not move, did not step forward. It simply stood by the window, watching him. And then he saw them. Eyes. Two faintly glowing orbs that shimmered in the blackness, fixed directly on him. They weren't like human eyes. They held no warmth, no life. Only a cold, piercing emptiness that drilled straight into his chest. His mouth went dry. His body screamed to run, yet his legs wouldn't move. It felt as though the figure had rooted him in place, holding him captive with nothing more than its gaze. The longer he stared, the colder the room became. His breath clouded in front of him, the temperature dropping unnaturally fast. He whispered shakily, "Who's there?" No reply. The figure only tilted its head slightly, as though curious. The faint glow of its eyes seemed to grow brighter, sharper, pulling him deeper into its gaze. Suddenly, the phone in his hand flickered and died, plunging him into complete darkness. And in that darkness, he knew the figure was no longer by the window. It was closer. Open book outline 7, 335-word script. By dawn, his friend returned, laughing at the idea of ghost stories. But the man's pale face and trembling hands told another story. He stayed alive, but never the same. The night had dragged on endlessly, each hour darker and heavier than the last. He had felt the presence. He had seen the figure, and when the lights went out, he swore he could feel its icy breath brush the back of his neck. Somehow, he survived those haunting hours, huddled in the corner of the living room, too terrified to move, whispering prayers into the suffocating silence. Finally, the first rays of dawn crept through the windows, casting faint light across the room. And just like that, the presence seemed to vanish. The house felt normal again. Too normal, almost mocking him, as if the horrors of the night had been nothing but a dream. But his shaking hands, his pale skin, and the pounding in his chest told him otherwise. He wasn't imagining things. He had been hunted. Moments later, the sound of keys jingling broke the stillness. His friend returned, cheerful and unsuspecting. "So," his friend grinned, dropping his bag by the door, "how was it?" "Peaceful night." The man just stared back, his lips dry, his voice barely a whisper. "You didn't tell me about the house." Confused, his friend laughed. "What do you mean? It's just an old house, man. You're not scared of a few creaks, are you?" But the man's trembling hands clutched the photo album he had discovered. He opened it, showing his friend the faceless pictures, his voice breaking. Who scratched them out? Who was the figure in the window? His friend's smile faltered for just a second. He glanced at the album, then quickly closed it, forcing a chuckle. Old junk. Don't worry about it. But the man saw it in his eyes. His friend knew, and though the sun had risen, he realized the darkness of that house would follow him forever. He had made it through the night, but he would never truly